Lesson 8.2, Properties of Logarithms, Part 2, Condensing. Once again, we're going to be looking at expanding condensing logarithms using log properties. We looked at expanding in the previous lesson. We're going to focus on condensing in this lesson. Now again, there are three properties of logarithms: the product rule, the quotient rule, the power rule. These are the properties that we're going to be using to both expand and condense. Recall that expanding is taking a single logarithm and breaking it into multiple logarithms, where condensing, what we're going to do in this lesson, is taking multiple logarithms and rewriting it as a single logarithm. With that in mind, sometimes you'll see the directions written as condense, or you'll actually see the directions written as rewrite as a single logarithm. I want you to be prepared for either way the directions are expressed. So here I have three logarithms. I want to rewrite these three logarithms as a single logarithm using the properties of logarithms. Now, when I'm expanding, typically I'll break up the I'll break up the multiplication division first into addition subtraction, and then I'll bring the exponents to the front. Well, here we're doing the opposite operations, so we're going to do it in the opposite order. We're going to focus on the exponents first, and then we'll condense the addition and subtraction. So here, if I rewrite this with the coefficients turned back into exponents, 4 becomes ln of y to the fourth, and then 2 becomes ln of x squared, and then the 1/5 comes to the top as ln of w to the 1/5. Now, the 1/5, recognize that that's really a fifth root. If you want to write that as the fifth root of w, you go right ahead. Whether you write it as a fifth root of w or w to the 1/5, it has exactly the same meaning to any competent mathematician. I'm always going to stick with the exponent notation because looking ahead into future years of mathematics, I know that rewriting it as an exponent is going to be more useful in the long run. So I've just by default learned to completely ignore root notation and only use exponent notation. But for now, I don't care what you use. Next, anywhere I see addition, that's going to become multiplication. Anywhere I see subtraction, that'll become division. But remember, I'm not multiplying ln of y to the fourth and ln of x squared. I'm multiplying the interiors of the logarithms. I'm going to multiply y to the fourth and x squared. I'm going to divide by w to the 1/5. I'm going to rewrite a single logarithm. Because I know there's subtraction, I know that originally there would have been a fraction symbol. The y to the fourth and x squared are both positive, so those go to the top as a multiplication problem, and w to the 1/5 goes to the bottom, and that is it. That's all you have to do. Typically, students do much better on whatever the second part of this lesson is. I could have started this with part 1 condensing and then part 2 expanding. The idea is once you get a hang of one direction, turning it around and doing it the other way, you don't even really have to think about it. All right, here are two more problems. Pause here, play when you're ready. Okay, so looking at the first one, I see a mixture of positive and negative logarithms. The first logarithm, the 2 log x plus 3, that has an implied positive in front. So I'm going to rewrite this first off with the exponents brought to the front, and then as log of a single fraction. The x plus 3 squared will go to the top, the y to the 1/3 and the w squared will go on the bottom. Now keep in mind, they are both negative. That doesn't mean divide one by the other. Since they're both negative, that means that they're technically being added together. For instance, if I give you -2 minus 3, the answer is not -1, the answer is -5. Because they're both negative, what really happened there is I added the 2 and 3 and made the answer negative. So in this case, because these are both negative, that means I'm actually adding the log of y to the 1/3 and log of w squared, so when I put them in the bottom, they are indeed being multiplied. Both logs are negative, so put each of them on the bottom, multiply them together. Final answer. Here's the other one. If you aren't ready, pause here. If you are ready, let's go for it. So this time I don't see any positive logarithms, so keep that in mind for later. Let's move the exponents to the top first. Remember that exponent is just the 2, not -2, just the 2. We have negative log of x squared minus log of x plus 1 to the 3/4. Rewriting a single logarithm of a fraction, because I see negatives, I know I'm going to have a fraction. I'm going to have x squared on the bottom. I'm going to have x plus 1 to the 3/4 on the bottom. Those are being multiplied together. And then I've run out of logarithms, but I have to put something on the top. so I put 1 as a placeholder. Recall that when I expanded a logarithm that looked like this, log of 1 would have been the first logarithm, but of course log of 1 is 0, which is why there's nothing there. Final answer.